Hey Canucks fans, turns out the Vancouver Canucks will be buying out Braden Holtby's contract after all. I'm Canuck Clay. I'm the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club. This is my Canucks take, all in one take. It's Clay's Canucks commentary for Tuesday, July the 27th. Subscribe now for Canucks insight that's positive, timely, and trustworthy. Canucks are no strangers to making news in the past week, and just a day after I talked about likely they might not buy out Braden Holtby, they might wait until maybe a second buyout window triggers in the later in the summer. It turns out that no, they are not going to wait. They want to avail themselves of the cap space now. So Braden Holtby this morning placed on unconditional waivers for the purposes of a buyout. Same thing that they did with Jake Virtanen back on Sunday. He cleared by Monday, and they will buy him out. For Holtby, he will likely clear by tomorrow morning. You got to give 24 hours, and then the Canucks will buy him out tomorrow morning. Technically, the buyout window closes today, but I think that means you have to get your guys on waivers today, and then make sure the transaction is done by the end of the day or first thing tomorrow morning. Regardless of the semantics, let's talk about this buyout. Firstly, we remember that Braden Holtby signed here last offseason. It was later, right? It was like September, October. I think it was October, actually, because that's when the offseason was. And we signed him for a 2-year deal, 4.3 cap hit for each of those 2 years, so $8.6 million contract. But the way the money was 2.9 in the first season in cash, 5.7 for the second season. So it was backloaded in terms of the actual salary. But the more important thing you need to know, it was 4.3 million. Actually, yeah, you need to know both. You need to know that the cap hit is 4.3 million for the 2 years, but his actual salary is $5.7 million for the second year. And I'll tell you why that's key in a second. When we brought him in, the first thing many people thought of was, oh, good, this will be the guy that we can expose in the expansion draft. And that's what we ended up doing, obviously protecting Thatcher Demko, who has that 5-year contract. But it wasn't a slam dunk, as we saw throughout the season. Holtby struggled a little bit, just like the team struggled. It wasn't Holtby's fault, but he struggled a little bit, and therefore was not picked up by Seattle in the expansion draft. We don't know how much interest there was ultimately. Of course, the Canucks have tried to move Holtby because, as I mentioned yesterday, that was the whole point of waiting for a second buyout window, which, by the way, I also found out the second buyout window wasn't a guarantee. It would only get triggered if one of the Canucks RFAs, i.e. Pettersson, Hughes, Dickinson, Garland, any of those guys, if they took the Canucks to arbitration. So in a kind of weird kind of rule, as long as there was an arbitration hearing set, it didn't even have to go through. As long as it was set, then it triggers a second buyout window. But we don't have to worry about that now because the Canucks are indeed buying them out in this first buyout window. So as I was saying, it's better to get a trade, obviously, a trade for Holtby. That way you get assets back, and you whether you retain or not, you get rid of the entire contract. But it looks like the trade market has dried up a little bit ever since the expansion draft, ever since the entry draft. So I think the Canucks feel like they need to move now. So Holtby, a disappointing season here, and it's disappointing that we were not able to trade trade him out, and instead we are going to indeed buy him out. So let's talk about the mechanics of that buyout. The buyout itself, it's 2/3 of his salary, not his salary cap hit. So that's why forget about the 4.3 for now. We're going to go back to it, but it's 2/3 of his salary owing, which, as I mentioned, $5.7 million. So you take 2/3 of that, which is 3.8, right? And then you spread it out over 2 years now instead of 1 year, because he's got 1 year left on the contract, but you times it by 2. So 2/3 of his contract over 2/3 of the salary over twice the length of the contract remaining. So 2/3 of 5.7 is $3.8 million. So you cut that in half, 1.9. And that means the Canucks, we're going to experience a cap hit of 1.9 million. Sorry, they'll have to be assessed $1.9 million this year, $1.9 million next year. But then with the calculation, you also you take the savings, and by the time you do all the math, this is how it turns out. The cap hit for Braden Holtby this season will be $500,000. The cap hit will be $500,000 this season, and the cap hit next season will be $1.9 million. So overall, the cap hit is going to be $2.4 million for the next 2 seasons. Again, $500,000 this season, and then $1.9 million next season. So there's your $2.4 million. But remember, his cap hit overall was going to be 4.3 for this season. So it was going to be 4.3, but it's going to be 500 and then 1.9, 2.4. So overall, over the 2 years, we are saving $1.9 million on his cap hit. $1.9 million on this cap hit. And that makes sense because remember, 2/3 of his 5.7 was 3.8, leaving the 1/3 is 1.9. That's now where you get the savings, right? Because you're buying out 2/3 of his contract over double the length of his contract. So the main numbers you need to know: the cap hit, $500,000 this season, 1.9 million next season. We are saving 1.9 in terms of cap over the 2 seasons. Actually, I should say 1.9 of salary over the 2 seasons. This is the important thing. $500,000 cap hit was supposed to be 4.3. Remember, for 1 season. So this year, technically, the net savings that gives us $3.8 million of cap hit to play with. That's $3.8 million of cap that we wouldn't have had. But then, of course, next season, we have $1.9 million of cap hit that we weren't going to have either. So that's where the net of 1.9 comes from. We save 3.8 now, and then we give up 1.9 next season. So add those together or subtract one from the other, and there's the 1.9 difference. With that $3.8 million, we obviously can use it to sign guys. Elliot Friedman reporting that the Canucks are closing in on a deal with Conor Garland. He's the speedy forward that we got in the Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade from Arizona last week. And they're talking about a long-term deal, so not just 1 or 2 year bridge as an RFA, but a long-term deal at close to $5 million a year. So obviously a lot of that money, if not all, is going to go towards that contract. There's other ways that the Canucks can free up money. The Virtanen buyout was a big one. The Holtby buyout is a big one. Maybe there's still a trade for Nate Schmidt going out. But regardless, the Canucks are going to need a backup goalie now. So that was, I just kind of snuck it in there, but that's a big piece of news. That's a huge piece of news, is that the Canucks are close to signing a deal, according to Elliot Friedman, with RFA Conor Garland. And I can do that in a vlog once it actually happens. But because we're talking about Holtby right now, the Canucks are going to need a backup goalie. That's for sure. There's rumors out there on Twitter that it might be Yaroslav Halak. I've always talked about James Reimer might be a decent backup. I think there's a guy like Aaron Dell who's out there. So there are many backup goalies that are going to be out there, goalies that can win you 8 to 10 games. And that's probably a reason why Braden Holtby, they weren't able to trade, because why would a team trade for Braden Holtby and take on so much salary when they can simply pick up a goalie on the free agent market starting tomorrow? So those are some of the complications, and I hope I didn't confuse you with the numbers. The main thing you need to know is the actual cap hit that the Canucks are going to take is $500,000 and $1.9 million over the next 2 seasons. Their actual cap savings are 3.8 this year, but then they deficit of 1.9 next year. So bottom line, it frees up some money short term right away. It frees up 3.8 in cap that the Canucks can spend on, whether it's to Conor Garland or getting a backup goalie, if you believe, as I do, that Michael DiPietro still needs 1 more year with the Abbotsford Canucks. All right, Canucks fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you find, are you happy? What's your overall emotion right now? What's your prevailing emotion? Are you happy that the Canucks are able to move Holtby and free up that money? Are you thinking this is a giant waste of time and money in when you look back at the past year? Are you relieved? Are you frustrated? Are you upset? What's your biggest emotion right now? As the positive guy, I can see obviously why the Canucks are doing it. That's what I just laid out. But yeah, you kind of wish they didn't, because that's now $1.9 million of cap that you're gonna be stuck with next season. But it does free you up for right now. So as always, there's some positives and some negatives to this move. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Shout out to my Hall of Fame members: Jens95, Sim Alexander, Justin Credible, nucksfan number 29, Lucas Gates, Chris Seifried, Adam Broomfield, Shea Family Channel, Jamie Sports Soccer More, Shannon Hollingworth, and Andrew Chang. Thanks for your support as always. And thanks to the support of all members of all levels. You're listed in my video descriptions. If you want to become a member of the CCC Crew, press the join button underneath this or any of my videos on the memberships tab on my YouTube channel. Subscribe if you like to, like this video if you like to, leave a comment if you like to, and definitely become a member if you like to. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. Have a great day. God bless, and go Canucks go.